in the room of Verble Collins. Verble is at Lake Haven, and we appreciate the fact that she's allowing us to come in and chat with her about her family and her family tree and so forth. Now, Miss Collins, you were born in Marshall County, were you?
Yes, I sure was.
What part of the county?
Well, they always called it Cap Spring.
Cap Spring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never heard of Cap Spring. I'm ashamed to say that, but about what part of the county? Was that the north side?
Well, yeah, more north than it was.
It was sort of like Sharp, maybe, or Palma, or Calvert City, or...
At the time that my daddy bought there, why, there wasn't too many homes around,
Mm-hmm.
but they got to be in quite a few
Mm-hmm.
people. And you know where the Price Cemetery is?
Yes.
Okay, you go on around, just follow that road to your left, and you come into where we lived.
All right.
It's not too far from Price Cemetery.
That locates it pretty well. What was your father's name?
Samuel Lindsay.
Samuel Lindsay.
Uh-huh.
L-I-N-D-S-E-Y?
Lindsay is right.
Okay. Now, your mother was whom?
Ada Lindsay. She was a Gregory before she married my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Bud Gregory and Sarah Gregory's daughter.
Uh-huh. And you are about how old?
I'm 72 years old. I was in the 16th of May.
Well, you just had a birthday not too long ago this year then. All right. You were born in that community. What was the school that you went to?
I went to Davis Chapel.
That may be a new one on me, too. I hear of Howard's Grove, and I hear of
now,
Stall, and...
do you know where, well, I think.
Davis Chapel. Well, that's good enough. Do you remember?
Do you know where Ethel Ross used to live?
No, ma'am, I don't believe I know that.
Well, it wasn't far from Ethel Ross' home till Davis Chapel, and that's where I went to school till I was 9 years old. And then my father bought a place on Highway 68 and I went to Maple Spring.
I know where that is. Now that's you're getting back down toward Jonathan Creek in that area. All right. Let's see. Do you remember any of the teachers you may have had?
Well, I had Helen Stone.
Oh, I know Helen Stone Gardner. We had her at Hardin for a while.
And I went to Lucille Downing.
I know Miss Lucille. Do you listen to WCBL on Sunday morning any?
No, I don't never get to. We don't get through with our breakfast until it's late.
Well, anyway, Miss Lucille calls Lonnie Smith every Sunday morning.
She does.
And says, I want you to do a song for me and my neighbors.
Well, she's out here most every day. I didn't see her today, but I didn't get out about the time that she usually comes.
So she visits you people, does what she can to cheer you up.
She sure does.
Well, that's the kind of person she is.
That's the kind of person she is. I have spent many a night with her when she was living up toward Olive. And when she was my school teacher.
Yes.
She drove a pony, to a buggy.
And she took you home with her?
Uh-huh.
That was a thrill, wasn't
That
it?
was a treat, sure enough.
Yeah.
It sure was.
And she had a pony to a buggy.
Mm-hmm. She sure did.
Now, those teachers back then had to build the fire
Mm-hmm.
in the winter, of course. They had to draw water probably out of a well or a cistern.
Well, it was a cistern at Maple Spring.
Hmm. And sweep the floor
Yeah, that's right.
and see after the children. I guess like most teachers, for the little ones, she'd help them get on their overshoes in the
That's right.
afternoon.
She sure did.
Yeah.
She was a mighty sweet person.
And then teach 8 grades of about anywhere from 4 to 8 subjects each.
Uh-huh.
So
That's right.
that kept them busy, didn't
It sure did. It kept
But
her
they
kept
seemed
her
to
on her
enjoy
toes.
it. Seemed to enjoy it.
I believe she enjoyed it as much as anyone I ever saw.
Mhm.
And it would just thrill her to death for me to go home with her.
Yeah.
I averaged once a week anyway, going home with her.
Well, you were a little bit on the unusual side about
That's
going.
So we
And-
just had the best time.
Well, good.
Wasn't her mama named May?
I'm not sure. I believe her father was Modi Burnett, wasn't it?
Well, was her father named May?
I'm not sure what. I sort of believe that she was a Burnett before she married
Uh-huh.
and lived somewhere out in
I
the
believe
general neighborhood of Olive, I'd say.
I believe her mama, it's been a long time, but I believe her mama's name was May.
Now that I don't remember. I'm sorry, I can't help you on that. Well, what did you like most about school?
Well, you know, I like most everything except history. I never could. I don't know why, but I just never could get too well started off in history.
You liked
And
arithmetic.
Mhm.
You liked
Mhm.
reading and spelling,
I
I
sure
guess.
did.
And they had spelling bees back then.
Well, I meant to say I was most always in spelling bee,
Mhm.
but
Do you remember that if you spelled a word someone had missed, you got to move up one place in the line?
that's right. We sure did.
Seemed like we called that turning them down.
We sure did.
Now, on the schoolyard, or school grounds, do you remember any games you played?
Oh yeah. Jump the rope
Mm-hmm.
and hopscotch.
Oh, that was
Drop the handkerchief.
Mm-hmm.
And oh goodness, I don't know. Just
Well, you've come up with 3 good ones there already, so that's.
and we girls, we would play ball with the boys.
Mm-hmm.
I know I fell down and broke my arm.
Playing ball.
I sure did.
Well, that wasn't very funny, of course.
My mama, she liked to whip me over that.
but- Yeah.
She told me not to get out there and act like a boy anymore.
All right, you finished school and you grew up to be a young lady. Were you interested in the boys?
Well, I don't know whether to say I was or not. I only went with one, and I married him.
You went with one boy and married him.
Uh-huh.
Well, that may be an unusual experience. I don't know.
Well, I married Ray Collins.
Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Collins, did he go to school same place you did?
No, We met after we moved back to our regular home place on the Cap Spring Road.
Was he from Marshall County
Uh-huh.
too?
He was born down close to Birmingham. old Birmingham.
Right. What did you do when you first married? Was he a farmer?
Mm-hmm. He sure was.
So, like most young couples, I guess you both worked together.
We sure did.
You probably a typical day, I guess, would somebody got up and milked the cow,
Uh-huh.
and then you slopped the pigs and fed the chickens.
That's right. We sure did.
You had breakfast, and did you work in the field any?
Yes, I did.
About all the women did, I
Well.
suppose. My mother did.
Well, I sure did. I worked in the field a lot.
I often thought it was the hardest work of all.
Well,
because
it was.
Dad would use the plow, and of course that is pretty tough, following a team all day. And yet, a gooseneck hoe wasn't exactly easy, was it?
No, it sure wasn't.
And the women and children generally got that job.
That's right. Ray, he always said a hoe didn't fit his hands. The handle didn't fit his hands.
No.
And so we always laughed at him about that.
Mhm.
I remember after we were married, not too long, I believe it was the next year, we had a tobacco crop, and we got $4.50 out of it. And
Well,
then
that
we had to
was-
give a third of that $4.50. Now that's how cheap tobacco was at that time.
Uh-huh.
And
Well, it got worse than that during the
Ye-
middle of the Depression. Didn't
it
it?
sure did.
I think my dad's best in 1933 brought $3 a hundred.
Well, this sure did. It hurt.
So you didn't have much money.
No.
You remember what the crop netted you that year?
No, I don't.
You
Well,
prob-
it brought $4.50, and then we had to give a third of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's just the.
Well, now, you couldn't have lived on that. I tell people sometimes that my dad made a tobacco crop in 33. It brought $21. We gave 7 to the landowner, and we had 14 to live on for a year. But now, I guess the way we actually lived was that we grew a little bit of everything to eat.
That's
had a big
right.
garden. We killed 2 pigs. We milked a cow every day.
Mm-hmm.
We took corn to the mill and
Had it crushed.
had it ground, and
Mhm.
they made meal. The miller, no money changed hands. He just kept part of the meal for grinding it.
That's right.
Then I guess sold it to someone that lived in the city and
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a corn crop. We had wheat, not every year, but some years, and we'd take that to the mill and they'd make flour.
My daddy, he always would shuck enough of corn to take to get flour.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's the way he would exchange the corn for flour.
For the flour.
Uh-huh. So.
Well, what did you do about canning things?
Oh,
Do a lot
good.
of canning in the
Oh,
summer?
we sure did. Everything that we could get a hold of.
Usually there'd be a few apple trees and a peach
Uh-huh.
tree and maybe a
Pear
pear
tr-
around.
Mhm.
And we'd pick blackberries.
Yeah, we sure did.
You've
We'd-
done that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Did chiggers bother you?
They'd almost eat us up.
That's the only thing I hate. I like picking berries.
Oh, well, I
all right,
do too.
But the chiggers.
That is right. They hurt so bad, didn't they?
Yeah. And I was a little afraid of snakes too.
You were.
But I never got snake bit.
Well, I never did either.
But I always was afraid of them
Uh-huh.
anyway. Looked around pretty
And
carefully.
we sold eggs at 12 cents a dozen.
And did you sell any cream?
We sure did, but I have forgot how much that was. Not much, though.
But well, we'd have maybe 35 cents worth. But you know, 35 cents went a good long ways
It
back then.
sure did.
Uh, did a peddler come by your house?
They sure did.
What? I used to think that was the grandest thing.
No, it sure was.
Here this peddler would drive up, mother would trade him a few eggs for
That's right.
sugar, salt.
And you'd get, about a pound of sugar for how much? I forgot.
3 or 4 cents a pound.
Well, it wasn't much, but I have forgotten.
I can remember. In fact, I have an ad from the Murray Ledger and Times showing sugar selling for 3 cents. And I believe one of the stores would run a weekend special, 10 pounds for 29 cents.
Well, I know it wasn't much. I forgot, though, just how much it was. But anyway, we didn't have too much sugar to do anything with. We'd
Well,
have to wait and,
did you make any sorghum molasses?
oh, yeah, my daddy did sorghum.
Mm-hmm.
He'd always have a nice patch of sorghum, and we would go to the field and strip it and cut it. He never did make too much sorghum his own self. He didn't care too much about that. We would take it to someone else. And
Someone else ran the mill,
uh-huh.
and everybody in the neighborhood had their sorghum worked up there.
They sure did.
Well, that's the way we did. My dad never owned a sorghum mill, but there was always one in every neighborhood. Now, the point, I guess, that I started to make was that reduced your need for sugar a little bit, didn't it?
My mother used more sorghum than nearly any. She'd make sorghum cakes and sweeten things with sorghum and just.
We would, for breakfast, of course, Mother always made biscuits for breakfast and cornbread for lunch. Generally, we just ate what was left over at the evening meal, which we call supper.
Mm-hmm.
And in the morning, you could take red hot biscuits just out of the oven and
They were good.
some good butter and stir it up in the sorghum, and you know, that wasn't bad eating.
No, it sure wasn't.
And then, as you say, you could make sorghum cakes and
Cookies.
cookies, so forth.
My mother, she was a good manager. She sure did.
Well, many a lady had to manage fairly well in those days, or they wouldn't have got by.
No, they wouldn't. They sure wouldn't.
You didn't.
I remember very well the first time that I had to have cornbread for breakfast. You know, back then we had to manage in a lot of ways. My mother, she called me, and I went to the table, and I saw that we had cornbread for breakfast that morning.
And normally you had biscuits for breakfast, didn't you?
That was my first time to ever have cornbread. And I began crying.
Oh, well, that hurt your mother, didn't it?
It hurt my daddy too. And my daddy said, if I live, says that young one, we'll have some biscuit for her breakfast in the morning. That's just the way he spoke it, and I did.
Yeah.
I got up from the table. I wouldn't eat anything because I didn't know. That was my first time to ever have cornbread for breakfast.
Did you make any clothing for your family?
Oh, yes.
I didn't ask you, I don't believe, did you have any children?
We had one little girl, and we went to Detroit, and she was born in 33, and we went to Detroit in 34. And she passed on in 43. She like from the 13th of December till the
She was,
17th of April, being 10 years old.
I started to say she wouldn't have been over 10.
That's right. So she had spinal meningitis and passed away.
A very dread disease in those days.
At that time, you see, it was during the war, and that they couldn't get penicillin or sucker drug, either one, to her in time to save her. So
Well,
that's the only
that's too
one
bad.
that we had.
The women generally made various kinds of clothing. My mother never made overalls, although I've seen women do it. She had a sewing machine that you pumped with a treadle.
That's the kind that my mother had too.
She bought it. It was a Damascus. Montgomery Ward sold them. I don't know who made them. Might have been Singer or somebody else. But
My mother, she had a good singer. It was, I'll never forget. She said, Verble, my coffee grinder, I should have said, and her sewing machine was the first two pieces of furniture that she had. And I kept that sewing machine up until I had to break up housekeeping. My husband passed away. It will be 10 years next August. And so I had to get rid of them. And I sold my home. And I moved in a trailer up in just a friend. I don't have any family. So I moved in a trailer in Floyd and Becky Henson's yard. And there was a storm come up. It was a tornado. And it just splintered my trailer. And I was in it. So.
were you injured?
Oh, yes, I was hurt badly.
Bruised? So on.
And Floyd's wife, Becky, was in there with me at the time. And we both got hurt. And I had to go to the hospital, but she didn't. And so
That is a very frightening experience.
we didn't have time to even know how frightening it was. The thunder, it just, Becky come in at the back door. And by the time she walked to the table, why, she said, "Oh, Verble, that thunder just keeps a-roaring." And she went and looked out at the back door, and she said, "I don't see any cloud." And by the time she started walking back to me,
That was the wind roaring.
it commenced hailing, and then it poured down of rain. And by the time that we heard that, the trailer just blew up, and they said it just blew and said it just splintered it. And yes, my whole side of my ribs on this side, on the right side, were broken, all of them except the leading one. Crushed my hip all to pieces on the right side. And broke my pelvis on that side, a double braid.
It took a long time to recover.
And I laid 3.5 months
And you'll
flat on my
never
back.
be just the way you were before.
No. I can't stand to do anything much now. So that's the reason why that I'm here. Floyd and Becky, they wanted me to move in with them. I said, "No, children, I'm not going to do it. We're no kin, and I want us to stay dear friends the rest of our life. And I said, they were good church workers and everything. And I didn't want to spoil their days. So she said, well, where are you going? I said, the only place I have in mind that the Lord will give me answer for is at Lake Haven.
Mhm.
She said, well, do you want me to go see if you can get there? I said, yes, please.
This
And-
is a nice place, isn't it?
Uh-huh, it certainly is, and I just love it.
They have
I've
good
been-
workers.
I'm going on my 5th year now here.
Well,
Be 5 year next June. So I just love it. Becky, she said, well, and Floyd did too, said, Verble, you won't like it. I said, if I don't like it, you will never know it.
well, what a wonderful attitude you have. That's good.
Well, the Lord has blessed me in lots and lots of ways.
I guess the Apostle Paul said, I've learned in whatever state I find myself therewith to be content.
That's right.
And so you can do it if you
You
try.
certainly can. And I have learned to be patient. And that means more than anything.
Well, yes, it does. We could all stand plenty of that.
And
I'm sure most Americans are not noted for their patience, probably.
So I've just,
Not like Job, anyway.
and well, I don't believe Job was very, he was patient, but there are a lot of us that is not as patient as he was, are we?
Well, that's right. Well, we only have about 2 or 3 more minutes. Do you think of anything special you'd like to say before we have to sign off? You got any big stories you'd like to tell? Or something funny that happened to you? Or that you remember that was unusual besides the tornado? That's an unusual story, it seems to me.
Well, that's about the only thing that I have really got in mind. That
How long did you stay in Detroit? You said you
we
went
stayed there nearly 14 years, like in just a few months.
And your husband did what there?
He worked at Ford Motor,
Hmm.
and I worked at Wolverines.
Yes.
I worked study days, and he worked study afternoons. So in that way, why, I would get everything ready for his lunch, and all he had to do was to, he would go by at the school and pick my little girl up, and he'd come and pick me up then at work, and then we would all be together
Hmm.
a little bit, and
Good.
so we just made it fine.
That's great. Let me ask you one more thing about your mother. Was she a pretty good doctor? Did she give you castor oil? Or?
Oh, goodness, I've taken that castor oil, black draught. I told my mom. And
Did you like black draught?
No, it was very, very bad. It
Yeah.
was terrible.
I've taken the stuff too.
Oh, mercy, it was awful.
Now you got catnip tea for the colic.
Uh-huh, we sure did.
So Mama always had a way
To doctor us.
to doctor you.
And when we had a bad cough, she would go out and get cherry bark and see, what else was it? I can't remember just, but anyway, she would make us a,
Make a cough syrup.
uh-huh.
Well, I surely thank you, Miss Verble Collins. It's
Oh.
wonderful to talk to you. You're a cheerful lady, and you've made my day, and I hope you'll make many others as they listen to this broadcast.
Well, I hope so.
Thank you again. This is Ray Mofield returning you to our studios.